Peter Bergman case. Peter Bergman, as he called himself, arrived in Sligo, Ireland on June 12, 2009. He checked into the Sligo City Hotel using a false address from Austria. Over the next few days, CCTV footage captured him performing seemingly mundane activities, but with peculiar details. He was seen leaving the hotel with a purple plastic bag and returning without it, suggesting he was disposing of his belongings bit by bit. Despite his visibility on CCTV, no traces of the disposed items were ever found, indicating a deliberate effort to obscure his activities and identity. On June 14th, Bergman asked a taxi driver to recommend a quiet beach, eventually choosing Ross's Point. The next day, he was seen at the Sligo bus station buying a cappuccino and a sandwich, then taking a bus to Ross's Point with 3 bags but returning with only 2. On June 16th, his lifeless body was discovered on the beach. He was wearing unusual attire, including Speedo-type swim trunks over his underwear and a t-shirt tucked in. The investigation into his identity revealed few clues as to why he was there or as to his identity. He had no identification, and the labels on his clothes were removed. His physical condition was another layer of the mystery. Despite suffering from advanced prostate cancer and bone tumors, no medication was found in his system. This suggests he was in significant pain, yet chose not to carry any pain relief products. Further complicating matters, the address he provided at the hotel turned out to be a vacant lot in Austria. During his stay, he also purchased stamps and airmail stickers, but it was never discovered where or to whom these were sent. The thorough search by investigators, including examining local dumps and public places, yielded no further evidence of his possessions that could reveal his identity. Some speculate he was deliberately trying to disappear, perhaps to end his life anonymously. Others suggest he could have been involved in clandestine activities, or had a complex personal history that required complete erasure of his identity. Despite the extensive investigation and international cooperation, his true identity and reasons for his actions remain unknown. The Peter Bergman case is often likened to the Tamam Shud case in Australia, previously featured in this series and now arguably solved. However, unlike the Tamam Shud case, the Bergman case has not garnered as much fame or international media attention. This case continues to captivate the public's imagination, symbolizing the profound mystery of an individual who, in the age of pervasive surveillance, erased his identity in plain sight. This is a suggestion from frequent contributor and Discord community member Lauren Redmond. Thanks as always, Lauren. The disappearance of Joshua Maddox. On May 8, 2008, 18-year-old Joshua Maddox told his sister he was going for a walk in Woodland Park, Colorado. Known for his love of the outdoors, Joshua's absence initially didn't alarm his family. However, when he did not return for several days, they reported him missing on May 13th. Joshua was an intelligent and artistic young man, fond of playing guitar and writing. His family and friends searched extensively for him, but no clues surfaced. For years, his family held on to the hope that he might have left to pursue a new life or career elsewhere. In August 2015, 7 years after Joshua's disappearance, a gruesome discovery was made. Contractors demolishing an abandoned cabin less than 2 blocks from the Maddox home found Joshua's remains in the chimney. The cabin, owned by Chuck Murphy, had been largely unused and overlooked during initial searches. The coroner concluded that Joshua had attempted to enter the cabin via the chimney, became stuck, and succumbed to hypothermia. His body was found in a fetal position, with legs above his head, indicating he had entered head first. The chimney was blocked by a large breakfast bar inside the house, preventing him from exiting. Despite the official ruling of accidental death, numerous anomalies cast doubt on this conclusion. For instance, A heavy wire mesh originally installed in the chimney to prevent animal entry was missing. This mesh would have made it impossible for Joshua to enter the chimney as described. Additionally, Joshua's clothes were found folded inside the cabin, suggesting he had undressed before attempting to enter the chimney. Murphy, the cabin owner, and others questioned the accidental death ruling, pointing out these inconsistencies. Murphy noted the cabin's isolated location and the fact that no signs of forced entry or struggle were found. The mysterious circumstances of Joshua Maddox's disappearance and the condition in which his body was found have led to various theories. Some suggest foul play, considering the position and location of his body and the missing wire mesh. Others speculate on possible misadventures or mental distress, although Joshua was reportedly in good spirits before his disappearance. The cabin where he was found has since been demolished, however, the mystery of Joshua Maddox's fate remains unsolved. This was a suggestion by patron and Discord community member Boomslang. The cursed Bulgarian phone number. In Bulgaria, the phone number 0888 888 888 has gained notoriety for its supposed curse, leading to a series of mysterious deaths associated with its owners. This eerie legend began in the early 2000s and continues to intrigue and frighten people worldwide. The cursed phone number was issued by the Bulgarian mobile phone company Mobitel. The first notable owner of the number was Vladimir Grashnov, the former CEO of Mobitel. Grashnov, who appeared to be in good health, died in 2001 from an aggressive form of cancer. Rumors suggested that his illness might have been caused by radioactive poisoning, allegedly orchestrated by business rivals. The next person to inherit the number was Konstantin Dimitrov, a well-known Bulgarian mafia boss. In 2003, while dining at a restaurant in Amsterdam, Dimitrov was shot by a lone gunman. The motives behind his slaying were linked to his involvement in drug trafficking. The coincidence of his violent end further cemented the phone number's deadly reputation. Following Dimitrov, Konstantin Dishliev, a real estate agent with alleged ties to the drug trade, received the number. In 2005, he was killed outside an Indian restaurant in Sofia, the capital of Bulgaria. After his death, Mobitel decided to suspend the number permanently. Anyone attempting to call it now hears a message indicating the number is outside network coverage. Various theories attempt to explain the curse associated with the number. Some suggest that the number itself is not cursed, but the individuals who owned it were involved in dangerous activities that led to their untimely ends. This explanation posits that the curse is more about coincidence and the high-risk lifestyles of its owners, rather than any supernatural force. Others believe that the number carries an inherent curse, perhaps tied to its string of eights. In numerology, the number 8 is often associated with power and material success, but the addition of a 0 has been suggested to invert this success. Across the world, there are numerous stories of such sinister phone numbers. For instance, in Japan, an allegedly cursed number inspired the famous movie series, The Ring. The disappearance of Angela Green. The disappearance of Angela Green is a troubling case that has puzzled both her family and authorities since she went missing from her Prairie Village, Kansas home on June 19, 2019. Angela Green, a 51-year-old stay-at-home mom, was last seen by her daughter, Ellie Green, after a minor argument at their home. This argument led Ellie to temporarily stay with her boyfriend's family. When Ellie tried to contact her mother after a few days, her father, Jeff Green, told her that Angela had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital due to a mental health crisis. He provided no details about the hospital's location or her condition, which raised Ellie's suspicions as Jeff had made such threats in the past, but had never acted on them. The story took a bizarre turn when, 3 weeks later, Jeff informed Ellie that Angela had passed away from a stroke at the hospital. He asked Ellie and her boyfriend's family to keep this information from Angela's relatives in New York. Ellie initially agreed to the request, but began to dig into the story told by her father, Jeff. Months went by without any funeral service or obituary, and no one could produce a death certificate. Ellie's attempts to obtain a death certificate from Kansas state officials were fruitless, and they had no record of Angela's death. In February 2020, Angela's sister contacted the Prairie Village Police Department, leading to a welfare check. Jeff then rapidly changed his story and claimed that Angela was alive and had run away with a friend. This sudden change in his story further complicated the investigation and drew significant additional suspicion on Jeff Green. Ellie subsequently filed a missing persons report, and the police launched an investigation, which included searches of Jeff's properties, but yielded no significant evidence. Ellie and her cousin have been proactive in keeping Angela's case in the public eye. They have spoken to the media, featured on podcasts, and hired a private investigator who has conducted extensive interviews and offered a reward for information. Despite these efforts and the involvement of the FBI, Angela's case remains unsolved, with over 100 leads investigated but no breakthrough. Theories about Angela's disappearance vary, but the primary focus remains on Jeff Green due to his inconsistent statements and refusal to cooperate with the police. Angela's family continues to seek closure and justice, hoping that new evidence or tips will eventually shed light on what happened to her. If you have any information on the disappearance of Angela Green, please contact the Prairie Village Police Department. John Titor. John Titor is a pseudonym used by an individual who appeared on various internet forums between 2000 and 2001, claiming to be a time traveler from the year 2036. John Titor first appeared on the Time Travel Institute forums and later on the Art Bell Show, a popular late-night radio program known for discussing paranormal topics. Using the handle Time Travel Zero before adopting his more famous name, he posted detailed descriptions of his time machine. He claimed it was built by General Electric and was housed in a 1967 Chevrolet Corvette. He provided intricate schematics and answered questions about the mechanics of time travel, insisting that his mission was to retrieve an IBM 5100 computer from 1975. The purpose of this mission was said to be to combat a looming technological crisis in his future. According to Titor, the IBM 5100 was crucial because it possessed unique capabilities to debug and emulate code from older systems. According to the lore, this was a feature that was not publicly known at the time, but later confirmed by IBM engineers. If anyone more knowledgeable about computer engineering could shed light on this in the comments, this would be much appreciated. Titor claimed that his mission required this computer to fix a critical software issue expected to arise in the year 2038, similar to the Y2K bug. Titor's predictions included several catastrophic events, which were to take place in the coming years, including a Second American Civil War, starting in 2004, resulting in the U.S. splitting into 5 regions, a subsequent World War III in 2015, followed by a series of natural disasters and epidemics, leading up to his timeline in 2036. He described a dystopian future where society had been ravaged by nuclear conflict and disease, and the survivors lived in a decentralized and agrarian society. Despite his detailed stories, Titor's predictions did not come true, as should be obvious by now. There was no civil war in the U.S. in 2004, and the 2015 nuclear conflict never occurred. This naturally led to widespread skepticism about his claims. However, Titor boosters proposed that his coming back altered the timeline and created a separate timeline where these events didn't happen. The mystery deepened with the creation of the John Titor Foundation in 2003, which published a book compiling his posts. Investigations into the foundation revealed it was registered to Larry Haber, a Florida entertainment lawyer, and his brother Richard, a computer scientist. In 2018, Joseph Matheny, a multimedia artist known for creating one of the first alternate reality games called Ong's Hat, claimed that he had been consulted on the Titor story. He suggested it was a deliberate literary experiment rather than a genuine account of time travel. The John Titor saga has continued to inspire numerous theories. Some believe Titor was indeed a time traveler whose actions altered the timeline, preventing the events he warned about. Others think he was part of an elaborate prank or a marketing campaign for a book or movie that never materialized. Despite Titor claims having failed to materialize, the John Titor story has continued to captivate. Angelo Faticoni, the human cork. Angelo Faticoni, born in 1859, was an Italian-American freak show performer and contortionist famously known as the human cork for his extraordinary ability to float. Faticoni discovered his unusual buoyancy in childhood, but it wasn't until later in life that he began showcasing his talent professionally. His feats defied conventional understanding and captivated audiences and scientists alike. One of Faticoni's most remarkable demonstrations involved being sewn into a sack with a 20-pound cannonball and thrown into a river. Astonishingly, he would float to the surface and remain motionless for extended periods. On another occasion, he swam across the Hudson River while tied to a chair weighted with lead. These performances were not mere parlor tricks, but involved genuine physical prowess and control. Doctors at Harvard University conducted experiments to understand Faticoni's abilities. In one test, Faticoni floated in a pool for 15 hours with a 20-pound lead weight attached to him. The doctors concluded that his unusual buoyancy was due to an abnormal arrangement of his internal organs, but this explanation did not entirely satisfy the scientific community. Faticoni's feats were not only a source of public fascination, but also the subject of intense scrutiny and speculation. Contemporary media often hinted at supernatural elements, suggesting that his abilities might be aided by otherworldly forces. Some psychics of the time claimed that spirits assisted him in staying afloat, adding a layer of mystery to his performances. Despite numerous public demonstrations and tests by medical professionals, Faticoni never revealed the secret behind his buoyancy. He promised to disclose the nature of the trick prior to his death, but passed away on August 2, 1931, in Jacksonville, Florida, without doing so. And yes, despite decades passing since the height of his popularity, there were still some people who were awaiting his revelation of his secrets. He was given an obituary in the New York Times, which carried the poignant headline, "Human Cork Dies, Secret Untold." The Great Emu War. In late 1932, Australia found itself embroiled in one of the most unusual military operations in history, the Great Emu War. This peculiar conflict arose from the environmental and agricultural challenges faced by farmers in Western Australia, compounded by the economic struggles of the Great Depression. The backdrop of this conflict was the Wheat Belt region in Western Australia, home to many World War I veterans who had taken up farming. These farmers faced plummeting wheat prices and a series of undelivered government subsidies, making their livelihoods increasingly precarious. Adding to their woes was the invasion of up to 20,000 emus, large, flightless birds that migrated from the interior regions in search of food and water during their breeding season. The emus wreaked havoc on the farmers' crops, trampling and consuming wheat and damaging fences designed to protect the fields from other pests like rabbits. The sheer number of emus and their voracious appetite for the crops led the desperate farmers to seek assistance from the government. In response, the Australian government decided to deploy military resources to manage the big bird problem. The operation began in November 1932, led by Major G.P.W. Meredith of the Royal Australian Artillery. The soldiers were armed with 2 Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition, with the objective of significantly reducing the emu population. The military quickly discovered that the emus were far more formidable adversaries than anticipated. The emus, capable of running at speeds up to 30 miles per hour, proved difficult to target. Their erratic movements and ability to scatter quickly thwarted the soldiers' attempts to shoot them effectively. An early ambush on November 2nd resulted in a jammed machine gun and few emus being shot. In an attempt to increase their effectiveness, Major Meredith's team mounted a machine gun on a truck. However, the rough terrain made it nearly impossible to maintain a steady aim, and this tactic also failed. The soldiers found that the emus operated almost like organized units, with some birds acting as lookouts, making coordinated efforts to evade the gunners. After several weeks of futile efforts, the operation was deemed a failure. The soldiers withdrew in December 1932, having managed to eliminate only 986 of the over 20,000 emu invaders. Public and media reaction was largely critical, and the operation became something of a national joke. Although the military's direct intervention was a failure, the incursions led to alternative measures. The government eventually provided more robust fencing and implemented a bounty system, which proved more effective in controlling the emu population. So, what's the mystery here, you ask? Well, I for one find it quite unusual that a scrappy pack of semi-organized overgrown chickens could manage a strategic victory over a modern army. The Pendant in Dark Souls. In the critically acclaimed game Dark Souls, the pendant is one of the most mysterious items, sparking numerous theories and speculations since the game's release. The pendant can be selected as a starting gift or found in several in-game locations, including on a corpse or at the altar in the undead parish if certain conditions are met. Despite its mysterious allure, the pendant's actual in-game function, or lack thereof, has been a topic of much debate and curiosity. When Dark Souls director Hidetaka Miyazaki suggested in an interview that he would choose either the pendant or nothing as a starting gift, it set off a wave of speculation among fans. This statement, coupled with the game's cryptic nature and deep lore, led players to scour every corner of the game for hidden meanings and uses for the pendant. The in-game description of the pendant states it has no effect, but fond memories comfort travelers, which didn't deter players from concocting elaborate theories. Some believed it was an heirloom connected to the game's lore, potentially linked to an extremely obscure character in the game's mythology. Others speculated that the pendant might unlock secrets on subsequent playthroughs or influence in-game events in subtle ways. When the pendant continued to have no effect or do anything, players came up with increasing arcane activities in an attempt to solve the puzzle of the pendant. Adding fuel to the fire, Miyazaki later admitted that his endorsement of the pendant was partly intended as a prank. In a 2012 interview, he revealed that the pendant was meant to play with players' expectations and curiosity. This revelation was met with a mix of frustration and admiration from the fan base, who had invested considerable effort into deciphering its purpose. Despite this, some fans believed that the real prank pulled by Miyazaki was coming out and saying the pendant did nothing, even though it actually did. Some brave souls continued to investigate potential uses of this item, but as expected, came out empty-handed. Years later, data miners went through the game's code in an attempt to prove or disprove the function of the pendant. It turns out the item, which is described as worthless, was indeed worthless all along. Cotard syndrome. Cotard syndrome, also known as Cotard's delusion or walking corpse syndrome, is a rare mental disorder. Individuals with this disorder hold a delusional belief that they are dead, do not exist, or are in a state of decomposition. Named after French neurologist Jules Cotard, who first described the condition in 1880, Cotard's syndrome presents a perplexing case within the field of psychiatry. The earliest recorded case dates back to 1788, where an elderly woman suddenly became paralyzed and subsequently developed delusions of being dead. However, it was Jules Cotard's detailed descriptions in the 19th century that brought the syndrome to wider medical attention. Cotard noted that his patients exhibited severe nihilistic delusions, including the belief that they had lost their organs or were entirely void of existence. In some cases, patients might refuse to eat or take care of themselves, believing they no longer need to sustain their bodies. The exact cause of Cotard's syndrome remains unclear, but several theories have been proposed. It is often associated with underlying mental health conditions, such as severe depression, schizophrenia, or bipolar disorder. Neurological factors may also play a significant role in certain cases of the syndrome. Damage or dysfunction in the parietal and frontal lobes of the brain, as well as the amygdala, have been theorized as potential causes. Despite advancements in understanding Cotard's syndrome, many mysteries remain. The condition's rarity makes it difficult to study extensively, and its exact pathophysiological mechanisms are not fully understood. Research continues to explore the neural and psychological underpinnings of the syndrome, aiming to develop more effective treatments and a deeper understanding of its causes. Isaac Newton and the origin of the cat door. Isaac Newton, renowned for his groundbreaking contributions to physics, mathematics, and the sciences, generally is also associated with the invention of the cat door. The story goes that Newton, who conducted many of his experiments in optics and physics at Trinity College, Cambridge, was frequently interrupted by his cat scratching at the door. To solve this problem, Newton supposedly cut a small hole in the door to allow the cat to pass through without disturbing his work. This tale further claims that he cut a second, smaller hole for the cat's kittens, not realizing the kittens would naturally follow their mother through the larger hole. Historical records suggest that primitive versions of the cat door, known as cat holes, existed long before Newton's time. Examples of such holes can be found as early as the 15th century in France, and they are even mentioned in Chaucer's The Miller's Tale, written in the late 1300s. There is no documented evidence from Newton's lifetime to substantiate that he kept cats or invented a cat door. The earliest mention of this story appears in an 1827 memoir, over a century after Newton's death, indicating it likely emerged as part of the mythology surrounding his life. While the cat door story adds a humanizing and humorous touch to Newton's legacy, his real contributions to science are far more significant. Newton formulated the laws of motion and universal gravitation, laid the groundwork for classical mechanics, and invented or concurrently invented calculus. The reasons behind the perpetuation of the cat door myth are speculative. Some suggest it serves to humanize Newton, depicting him as an animal lover who cared about his feline companions. Others believe it was intended to ridicule him, portraying him as so engrossed in his scientific pursuits that he would overlook a simpler solution. Newton was known to be a highly private and deeply eccentric individual, and I suspect, but have no evidence to prove that this might have been the punchline to a long-forgotten joke. While it is often forgotten today, Newton was deeply religious and spent a significant amount of his time on matters of theology. Apparently, his theological works were not quite as well received as his other intellectual pursuits. Basically, I imagine the joke being the listing of all his accomplishments, from physics and calculus to his dubious theological works, to his even more questionable alchemical pursuits. At the very end of the list, the invention of the cat door would be enumerated, the humor coming from the juxtaposition of the accomplishments. Check out the Spotify and Apple Music link in the description, and follow my channel for relaxing lo-fi beats. Big thanks to my shout-out tier supporters Noah Schubert, Iced Mocha, Kurt the Squirt, Monoxide Wendigo, Jeffer Metcalf, Z-Volts, Jordan All, Unknown Delusions, Faye, Jack Russell, Boomslang, Spookiest Becky, Vespertine, Metanova, Will Roan, Crab Nebula, and Blasphemoose.